Sorry. Welcome. I'm just doing a little studying up for this talk I have to give today. It's part of Montana Shakespeare in the Park's Postcards from the Road reverse tour series. Welcome to my tent. I am really excited to talk a little bit today about one of my favorite towns in all of Montana. It is, of course, Kalispell. It is in the northwestern corner, just off of Highway 2. If you head much further north than there, you'll hit Eureka and the Canadian border. To the west is Idaho and some other towns. All the way to the east, too, snakes its way back across all of those highline towns. And right there in the middle of the Flathead Valley sits Kalispell. Of course, just to the east is one of my favorite parts about Kalispell, and that's Glacier National Park, which, well, it's a little stuffy in here, so let's go outside and I'll tell you more about it. Oh, there you are. So many books. Okay, much better. I've got my notes, I've got my water bottle, I'm all set. Kalispell sits in the middle of the Flathead Valley on land that was originally part of the Salish and Kootenai tribes. On the west side and on the east side of the Continental Divide, you have the Blackfeet, along with a lot of other Native American tribes who moved through that area. It was incorporated by settlers from the east in 1892, according to Wikipedia. Oh, fact check desk here. The town had already begun to form early in 1891, but became officially incorporated as Kalispell in 1892. Double check your sources, people. In the town of Kalispell itself, there is a lot to do and see. It keeps growing, it keeps changing. It's different now than when I started touring in 2014. But my connection to Kalispell goes back even further than that, into the primordial mists of the Reagan era. I was a small kid and our family was taking a train trip from Minnesota west to Seattle, and we got to stop for my birthday in Glacier National Park. And I will never forget coming across from the east on the train and those massive mountains just rising straight out of the prairie. And I have been hooked ever since. There's a lot to Kalispell besides Glacier, although that's a pretty big draw. It does have an international airport, but it also has a lot of craft breweries and micro distilleries. One of my favorite is just out of town in Coram, the Glacier Distilling. There's the DeSoto Grill in town, which I have been to for barbecue. Really, really great coffee. And of course, the Rocky Mountain Outfitters, which is in a later family trip, the place that I got my first real-sized grown-up pair of hiking boots, because we arrived in August right in time for a snowstorm and were woefully unprepared. There's Whitefish, of course, for skiing and mountain biking. Flathead Lake is gorgeous. And of course, there's all those cherries and so many huckleberry stops between town and the park. In town, because we are always ravenously hungry and there are very few options late at night after a show, there's Moose's Saloon, which is a place with a swinging Western saloon-style door, wooden tables that everybody carves their name into. I think mine's in there somewhere. Peanuts all over the floor. Me again. Fun fact, it's sawdust on the floor, not peanuts. Really good pizza and cheap beer, which is pretty much all you want besides bed at that point in tour. Usually Kalispell falls towards the end of our tour, and by that point, setup and teardown have become well-oiled machines. All of us have our jobs and our little paths that we do, and we do the same thing every day. Setup gets really, really fast, and teardown can be 45 minutes from end of show to in the truck. It's also one of the stops where one of our great tour friends, who you might know from the documentary Weasel, shows up. And in 2016, he showed up with some of his broadswords and chainmail that he had made himself to the site where we performed. Back in those tours, we performed on a parking lot behind the Flathead Valley Community College. And even though we were doing Richard III and theoretically there was enough fighting in that show, a number of our castmates decided to take a whack at each other with large, blunt objects. There wasn't too much blood loss, if I remember correctly. Oh yeah, and then of course, Glacier National Park. One of my favorite memories comes also from that 2016 tour. We performed in Kalispell on August 24th, and on August 25th, the National Park Service celebrated the 100th anniversary of its founding. For the event, the National Park Service waived entrance fees into all of its parks and it was our day off, which meant that we didn't have to be on the road until a much later call time. And I begged our tour manager, Mike, I said, can I get up really early in the morning and go drive into the park with the X, Ford Expedition, Explorer? Ford Expedition, the X. Anyway, besides myself, there were two brave souls who got up, I think at 5:30 before the sun to make the trek and see the sights. We drove east out of Kalispell through Columbia Falls. We stopped for coffee at the Montana Coffee Traders because at that point in the day, coffee was very much a necessity. And then into the park where indeed we got in for free and drove along the Lake McDonald shoreline just as the sun came up over the eastern mountains and flooded the valley with light. By the time we got up to Logan Pass, there were surprisingly not many cars there. So we were able to park right in front, get out and go for a short walk. We did have to get back, so we didn't have as much time up there as I would have liked, but it was a glorious morning to spend with Sasha and McKenna and to celebrate the National Park Service's birthday and also our day off. And as we drove down the valley, my two car mates were fast asleep, and then we drove to Kalispell where we picked up the rest of the very sleepy cast and made our way south for our day off. Thanks for coming along with me on this rambling stream of consciousness memory fest about Kalispell, one of my favorite places on all of tour. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing all of you at some point on the road in the near future. Stay safe and stay well, and thank you.